See, working. Alrighty. Well, if anyone's here already, welcome. To anybody, welcome. Any viewers, any people watching the what's it called? The restream, welcome. I will get started. Okay, I need to adjust something quick. Okay, hopefully that didn't affect anything important. Okay. There's so many moving parts in streaming. All right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry if that was loud. I knocked something. So, first things first, is the painting wet or not? Um, okay, that's wet. That's wet. So the big. All right, dryish. Okay, I'm gonna have to treat it as if it's wet, I think. Or is it just the blue that's wet? Oh, wait a second. Might be literally just that. That's tacky. That's pretty dry. That's also dry. All right. This is dry. Oh, it's wet. So the reason I'm checking it, well, obviously I'm checking it to know if it's wet or not. The reason that matters is because if it's wet, I will oil out some of it so that I can, so that when I paint it, paint moves better. But yeah, I think I will actually oil out some of it. Don't usually like to do selective oiling out, but sometimes you have to, especially on bigger paintings. This is a very small painting to have to do that, but it has to be done. I'm still being cautious because even if something is dry to the touch, when you add oil, it can, if it's not fully dry, it can reactivate and then start, um, you know, smearing basically, at least some of it. So still being very cautious with my oiling out. And I use uh, Rube Loves Oleo Gel for oiling out. Um, can use regular oil. I know some people use Gamblin's solvent-free oil gel because it's very similar to Oleo Gel. They are very similar, although I prefer Oleo Gel a little. But yeah, they are very similar. I have used walnut oil and linseed oil to oil out, so Oleo Gel isn't accessible. There are other options. A little bit smeared there, but things right now are in such a state that a little definitely isn't going to be an issue. Style, arguably. There's almost no state where that will be a big deal, but definitely not right now. All right, now see. So oiling out because it's basically clear. The easiest way to see the areas that you've oiled out is by seeing glare. Oh, so yeah, it's getting down on the floor to see the glare from my light. It's the easiest way. And the idea is that it's a, you know, it's a thin layer. We're not putting down a ton of paint here, or a ton of medium rather. It's just to so that you don't get dry brush effect, essentially. So that it looks like you painted wet into wet more. That was a little wet, obviously, so it's smeared still. All right, that'll be close enough. Good starting point. This dog is super challenging. It is so blown out in the photo reference um, that there's air causes a lot of challenges or creates a lot. Also, Fittingly, I'm not a pet portrait person, so don't I painted some, but not my go-to, you know, material. So whereas with people, I'm way more familiar, so I have more of an ability to adapt, fall back on previous knowledge that I have. I'm much more limited with animals. And the thing too about painting unfamiliar subject matter, this goes for every unfamiliar subject matter. Um, you need a lot more information. So when I look at people, I can, because I'm used to drawing them, painting them with very little info, I can take that, not like I said, the knowledge that I have previously, and not just adapt, but also understand what I'm looking at. Because, oh, good idea about the anatomy, perfect, but good idea. So, like when I see certain things, I know, okay, that there's a shadow there for this reason, that reason, or that shadow's not actually there because of anything related to the, anatomy. Obviously, it's perfect, but animals far less ability to do, and anything else that I'm not familiar with have less ability to fall back on that more context clues off of. Just gonna check out something real quick. Make sure I didn't make a mistake with. Okay, great. Just making sure. Making sure I didn't mess up the links. Okay. So, so sometimes when I'm painting, it's hard. Even though I have my palette right next to my painting, and it should be pretty easy to tell, like if this color matches, whatever. Sometimes it's a little hard, especially when the colors are very compressed. The more compressed, the more difficult. So sometimes I'll make a mark, small mark. I'll either wipe it away right away, or I'll just know that I'm going to wipe it away or cover it, but kind of like just a test mark. Obviously, depending on what I'm painting, easier or harder to do, circumstance. Another thing you can do is I also have used the palette knife. Load up your palette knife so that the color covering the knife, the metal, not so it's not see-through. And then you put it, you know, next to it, and you can basically tell what color you've got. Still not perfect, but you know, it's an option. Funny when it's not perfect. So here I'm running into a slight and very slight problem that I mentioned previous is videos. I think actually, well, live streams. I think it was when I started this paint. There's some wiped out lines that I get to in time, meaning they dried like that before I could paint over them. So now there's a bit of a texture difference there and color or value difference too. So it's something I have to cover. Just means I have to like go in a little heavy-handed on that area, even if it wasn't my intention. I now have to. Worst thing in the world, but wish I had gotten to. For the life of me, I can dogs paw, front paw, here or not see. So I don't know if I'll be able to avoid the the very strong photo look that the reference has. It's it's a little built in because of the reference. I'm not sure I'll be able to avoid it entirely, but I do want to try and minimize. And part of the way I'm doing that, lightening a lot of the shadows and trying to make it. I can't fill in information that's in the shadows, but I can give the impression that there might be more there than I'm actually painting. And by combining shadows, although that is something photography does tend to do. That one's not. And adding color into shadows is a big part because camera's dynamic range is much lower than Apple's, and especially old. So adding in color, adding in information, make it appear as if I was painting this, viewing it rather than photograph. Not that I did photograph from a photo. Generally, in painting or digital tradition, generally a thing where it's like the shadows are cool, um, and figures are warm, but there's a it's not entirely true, and not really a strong system to go off of. There's so much extra information that can change all. One of them being instances where things like this, body parts are close to each other, because generally body parts are warm. That is true. Um, Generally, warm tones in our skin, and we reflect warm colors. So usually, when there's a shadow between of our body, they take the warm side, at least in that area. But yeah, it's not a hard rule. It's kind of a helpful guide, I would say, that I've heard repeated many So there's some leftover texture here from first state. Exactly thrilled about. Generally, well, I guess this depends on the circumstance. I will either leave it and work around it, which is possibly doable, um, or just scrape it down to the board if I have to, um, and then fill fill it in. One of the reasons I prefer working on boards versus definitely prettier. Getting and notifications, make sure more important to the merchant or and that might that needed attention. The reason sometimes I'll start painting in one spot and I'll stop, move to another spot, the same color, because some of these sometimes things are very, very close to each other in color or value. And if I feel like mixed the wrong one, a little too dark or a little too light or at a but an area next to it needs that, I'll adjust, put it down over there. Especially in something like this where like everything's technically the same color, I guess. Not accurate that it's actually the same color, but for ease of reference. If anyone's wondering why I'll paint into things like this hand, I'll paint over the edge of it. Often it's because either the edge won't be perfect adjustment anyways, um, or I want to avoid a very hard edge. Um, I'll go back and paint it, or um, sometimes it's just easier depending on the order of things. Um, like painting up to the edge of the hand hard. Painting the edge of the hand out easier. So just do that instead. That type of thing. Especially when your brush is all splayed like Minecraft. Makes edge work a little harder. But that's not the only reason. It's sometimes in drawing too, like there's that, have you ever, I don't know if anyone's ever draw through. The idea is that when you're drawing like something to draw through it, the areas that you can't see or something's way, just draw through it. The other side, keep going, then erase the part or cover up the parts that need to be. It really helps with the structure. There's a momentum to line work. Um, it's very hard to like stop on a dime kind of thing. So similar thing in oils. Not exactly. We'll be getting to the face. I'm not often fast the face in a figurative work. Portraits is a little different, but in figurative work, I'm a little less concerned about it. More concerned with the overall painting. all, and if everything's in the right place, I can fit the feature properly. And reason that way I don't lock myself in. So a lot of times, uh, in the past when I paint or draw or something like that, if something comes out good, I want to preserve it. Obviously, I don't want to mess up something that I've done, quote unquote, right. Um, so you don't touch it, and you try and mold everything around it because you don't want to mess it up. But sometimes feature can be right, but even though it's right or even beautifully rendered or whatever it is, doesn't matter. Um, Still wrong to the overall image, and avoiding that feeling is important to me. So one of the reasons I don't focus on it. Other is I'm fairly confident in the ability to actually do it. Don't get me wrong, it can often be very, very difficult. Uh, Especially if you don't set yourself up for success. I've done plenty of paintings where I really screwed myself and made my life very difficult. And putting in the face was a nightmare. But there, eventually. Because of the limitation of pigments, and honestly, it's not just pigments, it happens in digital and light as well. It's just it's it is definitely more pronounced with paint pigments. Um, when you start getting into these very compressed values, you start to hit limitations of the pigments. So, for instance, the only way it can become, say, this area, let's just say, only way it can become more yellow is it gets darker because you can't make, you can only make it so yellow um, and so light. Like I said, that's a reality of, you know, I guess digital or reality or light too, but it is definitely more pronounced, the oil paint and pigment and so on. Although I suppose if you used endless array of uh, oil paints, maybe it'd be slightly less lessened, but yeah, it's still an issue. Funny enough, I actually think that the limitation um, the limitations of oil paints is one of the really great things about working in. I feel like it pushes it pushes you to adapt to it. One and two, also it also highlights the fact that like this isn't photo, this isn't reality. Don't expect it to be, although some people pull off, you know, what's it called? Ultra realism very well. But generally, it it pushes you to be more artistic and aggressive, I think, because you can't perfectly reproduce reality. So interesting. This before I started, obviously different for viewing, but me when I started, dog looked so bright white and also warm. Now, these parts are warm. Parts looking very, very cool and comparatively very good though, because that means I have room to go in and bring out the white dog. Oh, it wasn't a mech. I kept seeing something out of the corner of my eye. What? Definitely. For giving stream some. Thank you very much. I appreciate. So, talked about this particular shadow a few. It's one of the most important shadows in the area in the whole painting, in a way. So, doing right now, pulling it off a bit. That can give that almost negative, like a film negative kind of. Might be overdoing it, but reason also going down. One of the reasons I'm doing that because there is some detail, and I'm doing make the shadow slightly larger. Hey Cody, welcome. And I'm merging shadows here too, and pulling it off so that room to. And no worries, Cody. You don't have to apologize for being late. I appreciate the company very much, but it's also, not demanding. Like I appreciate it, but it's not demanded. Um, yeah. So, oh, to finish my thought real quick, the reason I'm cooling it off is to leave room for putting in some of the details with warm, sh dark colors or shadows, and not having to lighten up necessarily the color. Just put it in different value, different. How you doing, Cody? I know we saw each other in eBay stream today. Hey, Donley, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. How are you doing today? Yeah, I'm doing all right. I recovered from the food poisoning. Been working a lot. Food poisoning kind of put me behind schedule. So little behind on all my work. Working a lot to make up the time. I will be in September. I'm heading to the East Coast for visit. That should be. Conley says food poisoning thing. Didn't you just have a run-in with that not too long ago? Or maybe I'm thinking. No, that was me. It was not. It was Sunday, Monday that I was dealing with it, and so I was saying it. I'm finally kind of recovering from it. Is what I'm saying. Yeah, it was happened on Sunday. Monday, I was kind of still feeling it. You know, no, that's all. But yeah, it was me, or me and other people, but it was me. It was funny because I was talking to my dad, and I told him I had food poisoning. He's like, "How do you get food poisoning? A vegan?" And I sound like it should be very hard. It's possible, quite easily. Especially when you order food from a restaurant that's both more common than. So I've heard people refer to a part of the shadow that's there's a part of the shadow that's the core shadow, and then there's the terminator of the shadow. And they're often used interchangeably, but I'm not mistaken, they don't actually mean the same thing, but they usually mean the same thing. I get them confused. But is saying you watched that Netflix doc about poisoning from food, and all the experts were uh most wary of leafy greens more than anything else. Really? Why? Why was that? Because mostly what I've heard is that leafy greens are the issue is cross contamination because they they tend to water them from um like what's it called? You know, places that produce meat. They use the runoff water, and that only says I think I got some from either some bad spinach or almonds. Really, that sucks. Yeah, I'm curious, Cody. I saw some doc on FDA and how like poorly it's how poorly they how bad they are at watching over things, and not their fault necessarily, just how how things are set up. Uh, Cody says, yes, that's why their farms are often downstream of meat places and they get E. coli from them. It was specifically bagged and packaged greens because people wash them less. Yes. Yep. That sounds about right. That's what I mean, that's what I heard too. No, I saw something about the FDA and that how they like spec things, and it's just like makes you never want to. again. Like, I think I might eventually go to an all chemical diet because, it's the cleanest or the safest. It's not. I'm not saying that's the feeling. Uh, so some of the paint is a little tacky. Not a problem for those brushes, is a problem for. Cody says, yeah, they mentioned that in the doc as well. Like, checking 5 chickens a month, but processing hundreds of thousands a day. Not that that would affect me, sure. Just comment on the absurdity. Oh, I mean, even worse than that too, though, because like they'll have a representative of the FDA at the meatpacking places, and I mean, I'm sure this applies to vegetables as well. And it's like you can't see E. coli. So them just standing there watching the food go by, not not what I would consider, helpful. uh, like if if you're there to visually inspect things and half of the dangers can't be seen visually, it's not, that's not helpful. Hold me for it. Hold on first. Hey guys, gonna have to take a quick quick break. Uh, sure what it is sometimes. All right, I'm back. Let's see. Conley is saying he heard that scientists have successfully grown meat in a lab, no animals harmed, etc. So no plants harmed either, I guess. Um, I mean it's better, I'll say that. It's definitely, less things harmed probably. Probably. We don't know the details. You know, sometimes sometimes the harm is hidden away, you know. You don't see it initially. But yeah, sounds promising. fingers crossed kind of thing. Oh, Don Lee. I don't know if you were in Nicholas Uribe's stream today. My brain's not all there, so I don't remember. Um, and anyone watching, Cody, I think you were there and heard this, but I know you were there. I just heard this. Tomorrow on Thursday, August 31st, he's going to be what's it called? He's going to be a guest on another what's it called? It's another YouTube channel. They're going to be drawing him and talking with him. And I think you can draw along if I'm not mistaken, if you want. Yeah, so should be fun. I cannot remember the name because why would my brain function? Um, but go to his YouTube channel. I'm sure you can find it, or go to his Instagram or something. I'm sure you can get the link. I will also be sharing his link on Discord when it's out. But yeah, just thought I'd mention it because I know you like Conley specifically. I know you like drawing a lot, so I know you paint as well, but just you like drawing. Thought you'd enjoy that. I don't think I'll be able to participate. I'll watch and I'll be in chat, but I don't think I'll be able to like draw and be a part of it in that way. That's all right. Cody says I'm bummed I work all day. Yeah. Don Lee says I stream tomorrow. Do I know what time? I did. They wrote it. They typed it in chat, and my brain went, "That's cool," and just kept moving. I don't remember. um, sorry, I don't remember. I am very out of it in the last couple days, just because of like how my schedule has been. Um, for personal reasons, I'm not going to get into the all of it, but let's just say I'm, you know, uh, working a lot and tired a lot. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's during the day, if I remember correctly. My thought is saying somewhere around like I think 3 Eastern. I'm not sure. What time are you streaming? Worth mentioning, Don Lee is a streamer. He streams. Are you still streaming on Twitch? Because up until now, he's been streaming on Twitch. He goes by Don Leo, Don Lee underscore OHH. And he does digital drawings, paintings. Uh, is a fun streamer. Recommend him. There you go. It's Don Lee underscore OHHH. Links aren't allowed in the chat. That's why I'm like spelling it out for people. Don't get me wrong. I can put links in the chat, but I have to. In order to do that, I have to stop painting and try to make the most out of my painting time right now. Oh, you're welcome, Don Lee. Stuff's I like your stream. You're a funny guy, man. Not funny like entertaining, I guess would be the right word, but not just entertaining, because I don't think that artists need to be like entertainers necessarily. I mean, some are, and it's good, but some I mean, even what's his name? Even Nicholas Uribe. I wouldn't say that he's entertainer. He's not like a, you know, entertainer in that way, but his streams are very entertaining, formative, and so on. Same about your streams, different ways. Cody, since I don't know if you're still here, but since you teach art, are you familiar with the terms for for parts of the shadow, the terminator and the core of the shadow? Are those terms you use a lot? Okay, so there's a lot about this arm I really like, but as I'm working on it, coming off too dark, and by noticing that, I can see there other areas that are too. So to address that, I'm going to go in and lighten up a lot of those areas right now because I think it's messing my. Don Lee says I've been streaming starting around 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Oh, okay. Well, they might end before that or not. I don't know. Cody says I know of them. I don't really use Terminator much. I use the term core shadow all the time. Okay. You know the difference between them? This isn't a like to put you on the spot. I get the difference confused all the time. If I remember correctly, the difference is the core shadow um is the darkest part of the shadow. Um between it's like the area where the form shadow gets to the darkest part and the bounced light or fill lights or whatever, depending on the circumstance, haven't hit yet. So it's like the part of the shadow that's like the darkest. The Terminator is, I guess, where the shadow and the light meet. But usually, think a lot of times they're almost the same thing because of how the core shadow usually follows the form and the form shadow. Think that's why I get them confused because of that aspect. I'm very confident about what the core shadow is. It's the Terminator that I get. I'm not as confident. That's more. said this about drawing, or that sometimes the issue with a part of the drawing is actually a separate part of the drawing that you're not focused on. You're having trouble getting the eyes right sometimes. Not the eyes, but the nose, forehead. Same thing with values sometimes. Because I see everything in a relative way, although it's worth isolating sometimes not see things in a relative way, because we most things relative. Having something wrong, throw everything else off and other things wrong. Such thing, but you know what I mean. Tommy says, yeah, I don't really, okay. Tommy says, yeah, I really don't use Terminators either. I think I've mainly heard Core Shadow, yeah. But he says, I understand them to essentially be the same thing. I guess if you want to get real specific, the Terminator would be considered more like the transition from Core Shadow into Light. I think so too. I think it's the like where the light and shadow meet versus the core shadow. I mean, they kind of assuming so Conley says to me, they kind cove like kind of or something similar enough ground cover ground that I'm cool with just referring to it as the core. But maybe I should refine that. The word Terminator is kind of emblazed in my head. Arnold and the movies. Yes, yes, I agree with you about the movies and all that. Yeah, like I said, I've mostly, you know, to me, I've basically considered them the same thing. But uh, and my original, like my original, my older art teachers didn't use the Terminator. They never referred to it. Um, but I've taken some other workshops and other classes where they do. They do talk about it, so that's where you know it. That's where that came from, goes, or my exposure. But I mean, that does make sense when people are teaching. They're often way more specific and exact. I think it also depends on the level. of that you're teaching. I don't mean like how good you're, you know, how advanced. That might also be a part of it. Also might just be too similar to their option too. But yeah, I always find the word my mic is cutting out some. Okay, good to know. I will pay attention to that. Thank you, Donley. It's probably just me not talking loud enough, honestly. I think I need to uh project a little more when I talk for stream. But he says, I think it depends on how you draw. Like Anthony Ryder uses the Terminator because he breaks down the shadow and light into a lot of parts. But most of the time, you could just say, add a core shadow. Oh, for sure. And soften the transition into the light. Yes, I agree. It's definitely not a term that is required. And like I said, I agree with Don Lee that I always find it a weird. I find it a funny term because I just think of the movies whenever someone talks about the Terminator. Like, I'm sorry, what now? I don't know if you. Oh, someone's saying something. Cody says. I also think that those movies are a lot because I used to think of those movies a lot because you used to use this thinner called Valos and find it impossible to say without the Arnold accent. Donley says checking the VOD helped me to dial in my audio. Yeah, I need to do that. Um, how is the audio now? Is it better? Because so I'm kind of in a weird situation with the mic, and I'm trying to figure it out. Um, this microphone will pick up everything. Like it is so ridiculously sensitive. Um, which has its benefits and oh, Dunley says, yeah, I think it's better since you started speaking louder. Yes. So here's the thing, right? The microphone is like, I'm gonna try and point to it with, obviously you can't see it. It's not on, but it's like arm's length from me right now. And it's ridiculously sensitive. Like it will pick up my rustling if I don't have any limiters and stuff on it. that's a good thing because I can move freely. It's a bad thing because I don't need all that noise picked up. Thought about buying a more expensive mic, one that you have to like talk. Keep doing that. The one that you have to like talk directly into, like really close. Like that's not good for moving around and painting. I thought about getting a lapel mic. They can get rustling from the fabric. So I'm a little, uh, you know, I'm not sure what to do. I'm not exactly a mic expert. The other thing too is that like, I live with Michelle and she'll be listening to the TV or something like that. If I have no limiters on, this mic will pick up 2 rooms down if it's loud, if it's slightly loud enough. So, so yeah, I might just have to go with talk louder. That might have to be the answer. In the past I had an issue. I think I mentioned this before. Actually, I know I mentioned this before. When wearing headphones, not earbuds, the um the sound leak, the mic would pick up the sound leak, and that was enough for my videos to get demonetized or something. Don Lee says, honestly, I just use a headset mic. I think Pinky's had a wireless one. It can be annoying on your ears, but the settings seem to keep most extraneous noise out. Yeah, yeah, that is an option I've debated. I don't know, maybe talking loud is the best solution because I tend to mumble, I think. So having to like be loud with what I say and direct, might be better. I don't know. Your painting is developing quite nicely. Love how comfy the dog looks. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad it's, you know, went along well. Yeah, dog is he's super comfy in his little spot there. I was talking earlier before you got here about how difficult the dog is actually going to be for me. I'm not a I'm not a pet portrait artist, and so there's so little information in the reference about the dog visually, like it's so blown out. Um, so finishing the dog and definitely going to be challenging. Maybe I should just keep him as a void of white for the most part. The color choices and treatment give me a warm, nostalgic feeling. Thank you. That is what I'm going for. Cody says, "Think you'll be fine. Pet portraits are much more forgiving than people, and the way you have built the painting up feels really embedded, for lack of a better term. Yeah, the void of white isn't a bad option in my opinion." Tommy says, "Yeah, I mean he's going to have to be a void of white to some degree, you know. I think I'll manage. I was just talking about like identifying the areas that are, more challenging and the areas that are less challenging. Just talking about the process of it kind of thing. Disarm be a little bit. Somebody says, "Yeah, I have several animal anatomy books that I jump into. I enjoy getting into that side of things, at least to some degree." Yeah, I I really don't practice animals as much as I should. Uh, I don't really like enjoy painting them that much, if I'm being honest, or drawing them. I don't know. For whatever reason, they don't do it for me. Um, so I've had to do them for work before. Had to like animate them. Well, not fully animate them, but I've had to, you know, storyboard them out and stuff. So gone into it a bit, but yeah, not my thing. Donnelly says, then again, I like doing animal portraits. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. A lot of people do. Um, I don't know. Just uh, never got into it. I do think the anatomy of animals, especially some mammals specifically, although I think it applies to some lizards as well, reptiles. I think it's interesting if you know the human anatomy, how you can take the animal anatomy and like compare them because they're just kind of the same thing, only warped in different ways, you know? Like like dogs and cats, how their their back knees are essentially like up where their hip is, like near it, and so you don't exactly see it. And then the part that comes out that you do see is more like the heel, and their foot is like very extended kind of thing. Like it's interesting, like trying to figure out what is what, you know. So I find that interesting. By the way, on kind of a side note, well, connected to animals. So um, if you want to see something kind of horrifying, um, go look up horse horse hooves in like how horses are born and what their hooves look like when they're born. It is nightmare fuel, honestly. Like I don't recommend it, but if you want something like that, that's something to look up. It's one of those things. Yeah, I'm not a fan. Conley says that the similarities between people and animal anatomy is fascinating. Yeah. Cody says, I recently learned that sloths and manatees are the only two mammals with different numbers of neck vertebrae. Interesting. Don Lee says, I'm probably going to look up baby horses' hooves now. I figured someone would do it. That is interesting, though, that there's only two mammals who have different numbers of neck vertebrae. That's so interesting, so fascinating. Conley says, "Oh, I think I've seen that before. That is so weird." Yeah. Ew, ew, ew. I'm sorry, not sorry. Cody says, "Yeah, we all have seven, even giraffes." So that okay. First of all, fascinating because of the obvious anatomy of giraffes. Um, Having said that, their necks don't seem the most flexible in the world, so I can kind of get that. I'll, although I have seen a video of giraffes fighting recently, um, and they like whip their necks at each other. Um, Looks ridiculous. Um, yeah. Only says, I understand this thought process. If I had to look at something gross, I'm going to take someone else down with me. Yeah, yeah, there's definitely an aspect of that. There are some things I won't. I've seen some videos that I won't, like, I generally won't even describe them, definitely not on YouTube, but where I'm just like that was horrible. I don't want to see that. I don't want anybody to see that. Sometimes they're important. Like I've seen some videos that are, I'll say, important to see, but horrifying as well. And I won't mention it. Like I won't just bring it up like in this kind of circumstances. It's one of those things where it's like only under the right circumstances would I even bother bringing it up. But something like that, yeah, I will totally share in the grossness. I had to suffer. You should suffer too if you so choose to do it to yourself. But it's also freaking fascinating still, even though it's gross. It's like, why? Nature's so weird. By the way, in case anyone's wondering why they're so weird or why they look horrifying and all that, my understanding, obviously, I am not an expert, but I saw a thing on it, and that's how I saw it, came across it in the first place. My understanding is because hooves are hard, they can damage the mom, and so they don't fully form until after the baby's out. So they come out kind of horrifying looking because they're not fully made yet. The hooves specifically. If I'm not mistaken, we all have different amounts of we all mammals have different numbers of ribs though. That is not something that is universal, if I remember correctly. I think there are some apes that have more or less than we do. I can't remember details, but vaguely have that in my head for some reason. All right, I am not happy with that. Sometimes trying to salvage something is not worth it. It's so much easier to just paint over and then paint it again from the start. All right, let's go back to the faces. Cody says, I heard that the other day and looked into it. I found it super interesting. It was also a link between number uh number of vary and metabolism. Both sloths and manatees have super slow metabolisms. That that is fascinating. Sloths apparently don't smell great. Uh yeah. I mean they don't naturally smell bad. It's just because they don't move much and they can even have I think it's like not algae, but what is the word I'm not fungus. Maybe it is algae. The green like they can have like that green stuff growing on them. It's a what's it called? Defense mechanism. Uh, helps them blend in. Cody says, and a low metabolism has a link to probability of getting cancer. So sloths and manatees are much less likely to get cancer than other mammals. Yeah, that makes sense. They probably heal slowly too, though, right? Like if they get cut, they probably would think they would be slower to heal as well if their metabolism is so slow. Maybe that's affected by something else. Moss. Thank you, Donley. Moss. That was the word I was looking for. Yes. They will have moss grow on them, and it helps them blend in. So it's kind of a defense. Cody says that's probably true. Yeah, I mean, it might be as far as the healing from cuts and that's what I don't know. Interesting. There's so many animals out there that like I wish I could adopt as a pet. That they make horrible pets, so it's I don't actually want them as a pet, but and I'm not up for caring for them because they're, difficult to care for. There's so many animals out there that I'm just like, I would love to have you as a pet. You are so cute. I want to take you home. Please. It's really a shame we can't talk to animals like Dr. Doolittle or something like that. Conley says, so if there's an X-Man sloth, it might heal um, at normal human speed. And is he a sloth that's part of the X-Men? Or is he a person that's a sloth that's part of the X-Men? Because if he's a person who's a sloth, he would heal slower. But if he was a sloth that was a person, part of the X-Men, then faster. Yeah, then faster. Yeah, I guess. See, you're never going to get this kind of discussion in a Bob Ross live stream for numerous reasons. But yeah, not going to get a lot of sloth X-Men debate. A lot of art streams. Besides healing relatively fast for a sloth, what would a mutant sloth's power be? Uh, Conley says definitely not. Uh, I think they would have the power that Quicksilver has in the movies and in the comics, but depicted very well in the movies, where where everybody like slows down to super slow, right? Like he's able to slow everything down. The only problem is he still doesn't have super speed, so everyone's slow and so is he. Which I don't think is all that useful. Conley says, I like that. The sloth has the ability to slow everyone down to its speed. That's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Cody likes that idea too. It would actually make a really cool scene where like the sloth and another person are racing to grab a weapon, but they're both so slow. Yeah, I think that'd be funny. Don Lee says this needs to be in Incredibles 3 or something. Yeah, I would laugh. That would be funny. I'd like to see that. Cody says you would be on the edge of your seat to see who gets there first. Yeah, no, it would be fun. It. I'm trying to think. I've seen some. This sparked something in my head where I've seen something like this, but it wasn't sloth related. But it was like two people going for like something, and but everything's just so slow for some reason. I just can't remember what it was from. I don't think it was like superpowers, but I don't. Remember. But yeah, I think that'd be funny. The question is, does he slow reality down too? Like, or does he just slow people down? Or living things? Don Lee says Zootopia. I don't know if it was at Zootopia. They had a sloth joke in Zootopia, but I don't think it was there. Maybe though. Maybe I'm but it yeah, I don't know. Cody says it could be like Bane and Batman. I was born slow. Yeah, that could be a lot of fun. I also like the built-in jokes of like slow can mean either physically slow, or mentally slow. So it's like built-in jokes. All right, so I'm actually going to try putting in here now, one that's in shadow. Looks. So the idea is to try and make it as dark, almost, can be slightly lighter, as this shadow, but because it's red or orange or whatever, warm, it sticks out. Well, sticks out is the wrong word. You can see it. That's the right word. Yeah, there we go. That's pretty cool. I like that. We have Cody says we have unintentionally created an incredible parody short. Yeah, I agree. I would totally watch that. There's this channel on YouTube called Drawfee. Um, they uh, they do digital drawing. It's a fun channel. They do kind of prompts and they do all kinds of pop culture related stuff. The reason I bring it up is because they talk about all kinds of stuff like this kind of thing like comes up a lot. They're all geeky and like into anime and comics and all that stuff. And there are now channels that um, take the audio from their either live streams or from their YouTube channel, and they'll do animations based off of the audio. Um, but they'll animate like what's happening or something like that. Very entertaining. Can be very entertaining. Um, it would be so cool if someone made a short of this conversation, like the parody that we just created, kind of thing. If I had the free time, I would totally do it, but I do not. There's also this channel, this guy, he like he took the idea of the channel was he took the what's it called, the Star Wars prequels, and like rewrote them to be good. And so he took the basic story and structure and everything, and it was like, okay, this is the general idea of it, but we're going to adjust things. He goes in and he makes all kinds of adjustments, and he tells the story like, what if instead of this happening, this happened, and then this happened, and why, and so on. And he goes in and explains and like goes through the process. Um, and in the first video, he just mostly, if I remember correctly, he just mostly like talks about it. It's broken up into three. But in the second video and in the third video, he actually had a storyboard artist board out all the like big moments that he's talking about, uh, which I thought was so cool. Like it was such a good way. Like you can't fully animate this; it's too much to do, but it still gives you the visual of like what he's talking about. I would totally want one of those of Slothman. Sloth the slow X-Man. But like slow in a speed way, not a mental way, you know? He has to always say that. So I'm watching One Piece right now, and for anyone who isn't familiar with One Piece, hold on a second. Donley is saying, I came across a version of the Empire Strikes Back recut with a Tarantino-like soundtrack called Pulp Empire. Oh my god, that's awesome. No, I really like those videos. Like I also saw a really interesting video about how to fix Avengers Endgame, or how to make the like finale better or whatever. Not I forget what the phrasing was. How not to waste the finale, or it was interesting. Good points in it, but yeah. Cody says, haha, that's a title. Slothman, slow, uh, in a speed way, not a mental way. Yeah, absolutely. Like that should be the like title of the comic or the movie. Oh, so I started mentioning um, One Piece for a reason. Anyone who doesn't know, isn't familiar with One Piece or the details in One Piece. In One Piece, the way most people get powers is through eating devil fruit. Devil fruit gives you random powers, depending on what fruit it. Well, not random. It gives you powers based off of the fruit that you eat. Each fruit has a different thing. Anyways, the reason I mentioned that is they have there's a character that is a reindeer that ate the human fruit. So he can he's a reindeer who turns into a human. The reason I mentioned that is because we are talking about Slothman being an actual sloth, not a person. It just kind of jogged my memory, or made me think about it rather. Cody says, "Oh yeah, they're coming out with that live action like this week, right? I don't know when it's coming out, but I know it is coming out a live action One Piece. I know they're coming out with a live action one. I don't know when it is though. I think at this point I could probably watch the live action one without having anything spoiled for me. Um, I am worried about how the live action is going to look, but you know, they're doing it anyway, so might as well take a look at it, I guess. But yeah, I started watching One Piece, not because of the live action, but One Piece came up a few times recently, with some streamers I like, and they were talking about um, how political One Piece is, and how like not just political, but progressive a lot of the opinions expressed in the show are, and how well they handle certain things. And I was like, oh, that actually sounds interesting. Um, So I was like, I'll give it a shot. This sounds way more interesting than what I've seen of it in the past. And do agree with that assessment. And I think it gets better. Let me put it that way. It does get better. Like the beginning seasons, some of the first seasons are rough. It does get better. It's still very um like it falls onto a lot of anime tropes, which some are silly and goofy and I'm not a fan of. Some are fine, you know. Just kind of depends. A bit of a mixed bag. Dunley says, sadly, the One Piece art style annoys the shit out of me. So I haven't watched much. Same. I can address that for a second. Cody says, I think it's because things that happen in anime that look cool just don't translate to reality, so it looks absurd. Um, and Cody says, I don't think I made it past season 3. I should pick it back up. Yeah. Yeah, no, it started getting good. Well, it started getting better around season 6. I watched, I think, up to season 6 on like 125 the speed. And Donley, I agree with you. The art style was not to my liking. Having said that, I think it improved over time. I think in the beginning I really didn't like it in the beginning, and I think it got better over time. Um, I mean, obviously, part of it is I got used to it. That is always something that happens, but it definitely improved over the years. And what's funny is, there's a few seasons where like some big stuff happens, and there's a lot more big fights and big action scenes. And I'm pretty sure they used some studios that are like more known for that because I could see some of the anime styles from like this. I'm pretty sure they used Trigger for some of it. It just looked like it. And if not, maybe they weren't around at the time, so it was a different studio. But yeah, there's definitely some where it just looks very different. So you can tell that they used a different studio. It's yeah. I think I think the art style evolves and improves over time. But it takes a while. It definitely takes a while. Like I said, I back to backed it and watched it at, 125 the speed for the longest time. Because I couldn't take how slow it was and how like yeah, it was just very slow. Like they didn't, there was a lot of recapping, a lot of standing around and not doing anything, and just like, oh come on already, just get on with it. What is it? 2:15. All right, 2:15, 2 hours and 15 minutes, I should say. So I'm gonna cut this. I'm gonna be ending soon. I am been working my ass off lately, and I'm tired, and I'm probably going to have to go do something after this. Not painting, but something that I would say qualifies as work after this. Uh, so I'm going to be ending stream soon. Yeah. I I have plans in the future. I am a night person and I will happily paint until like 1 a.m. I just can't do that right now. So there will be like night streams. And I say that for people also who are like in different time zones. It might work out well. But yeah. I'm happy his face is starting to look like a face. It's starting to come together a little bit more. The pipe and the shadow of the pipe on his face is still messing up this part of his face a little too much, but I'll get there. I'll get there. I'm probably going to have to bust out a brand new oh, what's it called? A brand new brush at some point, because currently the one I'm using is just too splayed for like the fine detail. But I'm also not concerned with getting like super fine, likeness either. Donley says, "This is a night stream for me. East Coast represent." Yeah. Well, absolutely. I just meant like there are definitely some people who live in other countries, and like if I stream till, midnight, it'll be like 8 a.m. their time or something like that. So I will comment about this real quick. So faces are hard, right? Faces are hard to draw, paint, whatever. Um, Sometimes. And noses. I find noses very hard sometimes to paint. Depending on the angle, of course, and the detail, obviously, this is a very small area, but sometimes painting like the whole area all at once and then like modeling it out is the way to go. Ah, Cody says, "Are you going to do more close up on the portraits when you get deeper into those?" You like that when I did that on the last one? Um, oh, you mean like zoom in with the camera? Is that what you're referring to, Cody? I'll give you a minute to respond. I know chat delay is like a huge pain. You said yes. Okay, so no, I don't think so, unfortunately. So I want to, but it brings up a lot of issues, technical problems. I think what I might do is I might try and do like a hybrid approach. So I won't zoom in all the way, but I might try and frame the painting full screen. Um, but I'm not sure because it does present some technical difficulties, um, that I'm not sure if they're worth it, kind of thing. Um, I'm glad you like it. I wish I had the ability to like, you know, I wish I had more technical ability and more resources to get all the details. Um, Both being afar and details in some way. Um, yeah, it is definitely a challenging aspect um, of recording painting. The other issue is, just to give you an idea. So you can see my camera right here, right? Um, and it's at quite an angle to the painting. So I've distorted it, the image, so that it looks pretty close to right. When you start zooming in and everything, it starts becoming very difficult to manage. Cody says, "Oh yeah, even that would be nice to see. I like this too, but my phone is hard to really see." Oh, for sure. Really hard to see what's going on. It would probably be better on a laptop. I totally understand that, Cody. You're absolutely, I totally get that. And yeah, it is challenging. I want to show the detailed work and but I also want it to be clear, and also the constant like having to fix um where I'm filming is an issue. Like it's what's it called? It's disruptive, I guess, to the kind of to the painting process. Um but yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I wish I had a better solution. I'll work on it a little. I'll try a few things out. It'll be a growing experience. Uh, there's a streamer I like. Dunley knows him. Scrodello. He streams on Twitch, or he used to. I haven't seen one of his streams in forever. He might still stream. I just haven't caught one of his streams. I think he uses uh, what are those called? The like foot pedals for like uh guitars or something. They might not be for guitars, but he uses I think foot pedals to change views. Um, it's really so he has a few cameras and he has them set up and so on, and he can switch really quickly between things. It's really cool. Uh, Cody says, "Don't stress yourself out. Sounds like more of a me problem." No, no, no. It absolutely is not a you problem. It is absolutely a um an issue that I would like to address. I just don't know that I have the abilities to address it at the moment. What I'm what I might do, used to do this before, and for the life of me, I can't remember why I stopped. Um, I I used to have my cell phone set up at an angle here, and I set it to time lapse. So it's not exactly recording video, obviously, but you know, it's recording the time lapse. And then I could release that to like Instagram or something. So you could see a close up, but it would be like a fast, it'd go by pretty fast. Um, that might be something I start doing again. I don't know why I stopped doing it. I used to do it all the time. That might be a solution. But yeah, it's it's it is one of those things. I would love to be able to show like really close, tight detail, but at the same time, I want to show the whole painting. It's one of those things for sure. Some of my favorite painters, that's something that I love about their paintings. So I wish I could showcase that more. Is that like their paintings change depending on like how far or close you are to them because of how much detail you can or cannot see. So definitely something that I have in my head. Uh, Cody says, yeah, that would be a good way to double your content without doubling your workload. Yep. Yes, it would. So I really don't know why I stopped doing that. I think, you know what it is? I think it was that, well, I got out of the habit of recording in general, but then also I was doing things for family members, and I was like, I'm not going to release this on, not going to release this on Instagram or anything. I just forgot. So, yeah, there you go. Bottom line, I just forgot. I think is what I can, the conclusion. But yeah, I'm going to be calling it a night very soon. Uh, just one thing I want to address first that I see before I go, so I don't forget to do it. It's funny because her face looks, you know, more messed up now, but to me at least, you might feel differently, but to me, it looks better now. Even though it's more messed up, it looks better. Conley says, without using Zoom on your cam, you could crop the video image and enlarge it in OBS, which would appear more zoomed into us. Yes. Um, and Donley says, I think you'd still be able to see your palette, which I really appreciate. Absolutely. Well, I don't know about the palette part. I do the zoom thing. Yes and no. The digital zoom, it starts to lose quality after a while. My thought was if my camera is capable of doing 4K, I can do so I can do 4K, but only stream 1080, and I can use the difference to zoom in, like you were saying. Um, it has its still its issues. I do. The problem is the face cam is also an issue. So here's a question, since you guys are here, um, and anyone who watches this later. Here's a question: do you like the face cam? Do you like seeing me? Do you like having me in the corner while I paint? Um, you can say no. I won't be offended. Um, but the reason I ask is because if I were to try and take up the whole screen with you know, with the painting, my face is going to be an issue. That's one of the reasons I have the palette out. It lets me put, the what's it called? The face cam in a place. But, face cam might be unnecessary, honestly. Tom Lee says, sure, the cam is cool. uh, hate the part right. Cody says, I like the face cam, feels more like engagement. If it was just your voice, but you were mixing, it might feel weird. Um, yeah, yeah, I could see that. I think it's funny, and in our painted lives, some people who aren't familiar come in and they think that Danny is the person painting, even though she's clearly not painting at that time. Um, I always think that's kind of funny because I mean, she's sitting there. She's not clearly not holding a brush and not painting, but they come in and they think that she might be the artist somehow. All right. I gotta stop. I want to keep going, but I have to stop. I have to get going. I have to. I have to get going. Do some stuff tonight. Anyways. Um. Real quick before I go, Cody says, like, if maybe there was dead air and you were mixing and someone popped in the stream, it would look like a still image with no audio. True. I real I realize that's a specific situation, but could happen. No, it's a very real situation. Yeah, absolutely. Conley says, I did a screen cap of your current setup. I'm going to try to show what I meant. And honestly, I don't think you have to film in 4K. Up to you, of course, just subtle bit of cropping. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd love to see what you're referring to. I just meant I can like my camera can push out 4K and then I can take the 4K and output 1080p, but that gives me a little room of like you can zoom in. I think it's like 1.5% or something like that for between 4K and 1080p without losing any quality. Anyways, that's fine. Either way is fine. But thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I am going to say good night now. Thank you all. Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Dunley, for hanging out. Anyone who's watching, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, you know, didn't get as much done as I'd like, but sometimes we have limited time. So Sunday I'll be streaming, and hopefully I'll have some more time to get into it. Good hanging with you guys. Cody says, good hanging with you guys. Yes, good hanging with you too. All right, have a good night, everyone.